If you're going through IVF or you're preparing for a frozen embryo transfer, there's a question that your clinic has almost certainly already answered for you. A question you may not even have known to ask. Day 3 or day 5? When should your embryos be frozen? When should they be transferred? And the reason this matters so much is that the answer is not universal. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And yet, most women going through IVF are told, we freeze on day 5, or we always transfer on day 3 without any explanation of why that decision was made, what the trade-offs are, or whether it's the right choice for your specific situation. Today, I want to fix that. I want to change that for you. I'm going to walk you through what actually happens to a developing embryo between day 3 and day 5, what the success rate data shows, the clinical situations where each approach has advantages, how PGT-A testing factors into this decision, and, importantly, what you can do before your retrieval to make sure your embryos have the best possible chance of reaching whichever stage your clinic is aiming for, or you would prefer. This is information that could change the way you advocate for yourself in your next appointment, in your next cycle, and I want you to have that information. I'm Dr. Marc Sklar, the fertility expert. 24 years of working alongside women and couples navigating IVF, helping them not just follow protocols, but understand them. Let's get into it together. Before we dive in, if you want to start taking action today, I've created a free guide called The Proven 6 Ways to Improve Egg Quality in 90 Days. You can grab that in the description below. Let's start with the biology, because I think this is where clarity begins. On day 3 after fertilization, an embryo is called a cleavage stage embryo. It typically has between 6 to 8 cells at this point in time. The embryo's own genome hasn't fully activated yet. It's still largely running on energy and genetic information provided by the egg. Think of it as the embryo existing on borrowed resources. By day 5, sometimes day 6, or even day 7, a healthy embryo has reached what's called the blastocyst stage. This is a much more complex structure. It now has a fluid-filled cavity, the blastocell, an outer layer of cells that will become the placenta, the trophectoderm, an inner cell mass that will become the fetus itself. And critically, by the blastocyst stage, the embryo's own genome has activated. It is now running its own program. This transition from day 3 to day 5 is biologically the most demanding developmental step. Many embryos don't make it, and this is the crux of the entire day 3 to day 5 debate. An embryo that looks perfect on day 3 may or may not make it to a blastocyst stage. Some will arrest in the lab. Some would have arrested in the uterus. And the question is, which is better? Letting nature sort out in the lab environment, or giving the embryo the chance to develop in the natural uterine environment? The answer depends on a number of factors. Let me walk you through them now. The research on day 3 versus day 5 is fairly consistent on a few key points, but it's nuanced, and I want to give you the real picture. Studies generally show that blastocyst stage day 5 transfers have higher implantation rates per embryo transfer than cleavage stage or day 3 transfers. The numbers typically show day 5 implantation rates somewhere in the range of 40 to 50% per embryo in good prognosis patients, compared to 20 to 30% of day 3 transfers in a similar population. But, and this is key, that higher per embryo success rate for day 5 comes with a cost, attrition. Not all day 3 embryos make it to blasts in the lab. Depending on the lab environment, the culture conditions, the specific patient embryo quality, and other factors, you may lose embryos in the culture process that might have implanted successfully if transferred on day 3. So for patients with few embryos, particularly women with diminished ovarian reserve, older patients, or those with previously poor responses, the risk of extending culture to day 5 is that you end up with fewer embryos to transfer, or in some cases, none left. On the other hand, for patients with more embryos and better prognosis, extending to day 5 allows for better selection. The embryos that successfully reach blastocyst are self-selected for developmental competence. And for patients doing PGT-A genetic testing, you must extend to day 5 because the biopsy is taken from the trophectoderm at the blastocyst stage. There is no universal better answer, but there is a better answer for your specific situation. And that's what I want you to be able to evaluate on your own and be able to make better decisions for. Let me be direct about the situation where day 3 freezing versus transfer has clinical justification, because I think this is under discussed. First, when you have very few high-quality embryos, if you have 2 or 3 embryos on day 3 and your clinic's lab is not exceptional, there is a real argument for not gambling on day 5. The culture environment matters. Not all labs have the same blastocyst development rates. If your embryos are borderline quality, the stress of extending culture may arrest them when they would have had a chance in the uterine environment. Second, when the lab's blastocyst development rates are not strong, this is something that you should ask your clinic directly about. What is your blastocyst development rate? A high-quality lab should be converting day 3 embryos to blasts at 50% or higher in good prognosis patients. If the rate is lower, that matters for your decision. Third, historically, before vitrification or flash freezing, before this was perfected, survival rates for frozen thawed day 5 embryos were lower than for day 3. That gap has largely closed with modern vitrification processes. Blastocyst survival after freezing is now 95 to 98% in good labs, but in some settings, this may still be a relevant consideration, so ask the question. Fourth, in specific clinical situations like after certain stimulation protocols or if there are concerns about endometrial receptivity, a modified approach around day 3 may be part of a thoughtful clinical decision. The key message here is this: day 3 is not automatically inferior. In the right clinical context, for the right patient, it might be the right call. Now, when does day 5 make the stronger argument? For the majority of patients in a good IVF lab with multiple embryos and good prognosis, day 5 blastocyst development is associated with better outcomes. And here's why. The blast has self-selected for developmental competence. It has already navigated the most critical developmental hurdle, genome activation, and the transition to self-sustaining growth. An embryo that arrives in the uterus at the blastocyst stage is more developmentally synchronized with the endometrium at the time of natural implantation. In a normal conception, the embryo reaches the uterus as a blast, not as a day 3 cleavage stage embryo. So in that sense, a day 5 transfer is more physiologically aligned. For patients who are doing PGT-A, pre-implantation genetic testing for aneuploidies, the day 5 is not optional. The biopsy must be taken at the blastocyst stage. And for patients who have had repeated implantation failures with chromosomally untested embryos, PGT-A testing can be valuable. It identifies embryos with the correct chromosomal count, which significantly improves implantation rates and reduces miscarriage rates. I want to be clear about one thing. PGT-A is not necessary for every patient. For younger women with good embryo quality, the cost benefit may not favor it. But for women over 38 who's with recurrent miscarriage and those with a history of implantation failure, it deserves a real conversation with your doctor. I worked with Lindsay, who came to us with 2 beautiful blasts, day 5 quality. Her doctor was recommending one at a time, transferring one at a time, and starting with the 5AA. And I agree completely with that recommendation. You transfer one healthy blast at a time. You protect the remaining embryo as a resource, and you support the body as completely as possible around the transfer. This is the approach that gives you the best possible outcome from the embryos that you have available. This is the piece that's entirely within your control. And it's where the whole program approach adds something that the IVF clinic cannot provide. Whether you're going to day 3 or day 5, the quality of the embryos produced in your retrieval cycle depends on the quality of the eggs that matured in the preceding 90 days. And the quality of the eggs depends on the follicular environment, which depends on your hormone balance, your inflammation levels, your mitochondrial health, and your nutrient status. Here's what we focus on in the 90 days before a retrieval. CoQ10, mitochondrial fuel and antioxidant protection for the developing oocyte. The data on CoQ10 and blastocyst development rates is compelling. Women who are CoQ10 optimized before retrieval consistently see better fertilization rates and better progression to blastocysts in my clinical experience. The next nutrient is vitamin D and optimizing it, not just in range, but genuinely optimal. Low vitamin D is associated with reduced blastocyst development and lower implantation rates in FET cycles or frozen embryo cycles. Melatonin, which is produced directly in the ovarian follicle and acts as the primary antioxidant protecting the developing oocyte from oxidative damage. Supporting melatonin through good sleep hygiene and, where indicated, supplementation is a meaningful intervention for blastocyst quality. And an anti-inflammatory diet, specifically reducing foods that drive oxidative stress in the follicular environment. This is not optional. It is preparation and necessary. And for both partners, because sperm quality directly affects fertilization rate and early embryo development. Rejuva's male formula provides the key antioxidants that reduce sperm DNA fragmentation and support embryo development post-fertilization. This 90-day preparation window is something most IVF clinics never address and is one of the most powerful things you can do to influence your IVF outcomes before you ever set foot in the IVF clinic. If you're preparing for a retrieval or transfer and you want to make sure your body is as prepared as possible and that you understand what questions you should be asking your clinic, I want to invite you to book a fertility assessment discovery call with my team. We do this work alongside IVF. We are not instead of your clinic. We are the support that makes your clinics work as effectively as possible. And the link is in the description below. Let me bring this all home for you. Day 3 versus day 5 is not a simple question, and the right answer depends on your specific clinical situation, your age, your egg quality, your embryo numbers, your lab's capabilities, and whether PGA testing is part of your plan. What I want you to leave with from this video is you have the right to ask these questions. You have the right to understand why your clinic is recommending what they're recommending. And you have the right to information that helps you make the best decision for your specific situation. Shaima posted in my community, she just had gotten her positive beta after a 5-day transfer. She'd had spotting, uncertainty, and fear in the 2 weeks following. She reached out and we helped her navigate it. We had the right support through every step for her. And she got to that positive beta day 11 post-transfer. That is what I want for all of you. Not just a protocol, a partner in this process to walk the steps with you. And apply for a fertility assessment discovery call if you want personalized guidance for your specific IVF journey. And next, I have a video on why IVF keeps failing and the hidden factors that most clinics never address. If you're in a cycle and looking for the things that could make the difference, watch that one next. I'm going to put that link for you right here. Until then, stay fertile and stay hopeful.